calls across the nation to defund the police.
To end policing as we know it.
Off the charts violence in New York City. 11 people shot in just 8 hours on
This is
Sunday.
about the police officers who every single day put on that uniform and they run towards danger when we run away from it.
Guns up, giddy up, it's True Crime Tuesday. Welcome to the Failure to Stop podcast channel, the #1 channel where police go to get entertained, informed, with 5, almost 6 great shows every week, everything different for a different type of first responder. And we welcome you guys to the channel. We got a little bit of something for everybody here, a little true crime, informed breakdown, some comedy on Mondays, some more news on Wednesdays, Com Center on Thursdays. So stick around. If you don't like one show, you might find that you love another. If you don't like one host, you might find that you love another. Just search around a little bit, figure it out. But this is the #1 channel where police meet society and culture. Brought to you by ghostbed.com/Wolfpack. I am here with the audacious Andrea Play. What's going on, Andrea?
What's going on?
What
can you hear me okay?
Down tonight.
Can you hear me good?
We got the I can hear you good. I can hear you
okay.
just fine. We are breaking down the Unsolved Asha Degree case. Before we dive into this one, I want to just say thank you so much to the Bar is Open podcast for throwing me this awesome t-shirt. Had a really great episode being on you guys' show with my son. Very special night for me. So the Bar is Open, Beth and Greg. Thank you. The chats might have been more wild before the show than they've ever been. We've got one of the people in the wolf pack shaving with Manscaped in the shower while bleaching his shower. I'm not sure that's safe at all. And then we're at like day 13 with at Will Cray. That's at WILLKREW, still being single. Way too good looking of a guy, way too young of a guy to be that single. I don't know. Maybe it's because he's here every Tuesday night, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Monday. Maybe that's why he's not finding the love of his life. But we're all here for him. And we're all rooting for you, Will Cray. We hope that you find love in all the right places. I heard you got your factor meals in.
I did. So I got them today, and it was a fun little, I never splurge for that kind of thing. I never get those boxes like that. So I was super pumped to go through it. And I didn't realize that they came prepared. I didn't know. I thought they were like some of the other ones where you have the raw ingredients that you cook. But guys, these come prepared. They're ready to go. You throw them in the microwave. And so there were things like sun-dried chicken over a risotto. And I can't wait to try those. I did already drink one of the smoothies. So I got the smoothies.
Smoothies are really good. Everybody's been talking about the smoothies on the team. What's his name? Was just our producer was just drinking one of the smoothies before the show. I had the jalapeno cheddar chicken last night. And I think Jay Durrell, he had the blackened pork chop, and we had dinner before the show together. He brought his factor over to the house, and I heated up my factor. But go to factormeals.com and use that promo code Wolfpack50. That's Wolfpack, the number 5 and the number 0, and they get you 50% off. I don't know if you're going to be as cool as we are, but we got like a gift card for some wine to go with our dinners.
Yeah.
Listen, if you're working hard and you're in the squad room, you're one of these little first responders, and all your little peasant buddies are whipping out those PB&Js, you can pick out a calorie-conscious meal or a protein-heavy meal, a vegan meal, whatever menu you choose from Factor. They've got hundreds of recipes on there. You just go down there and click which ones you want, or you can bundle them together and do like little bundles and have your little. You can have these. You can have like 3 of these meals delivered if you work 3 days a week, 5 days a week. Already prepared. All you got to do. So while all the peasants are eating PB&Js, you're not even allowed to eat peanut butter anymore. Oh, I forgot. About all those. Oh, there's all the fucking people with the things, the disease that you can't eat peanut butter. They got all the signs around the office like, oh, don't eat peanut butter in the office because, dead leg is going to lose his leg. I'm just kidding. Listen, I got 5 kids. I'm sure one of them probably suffers from a peanut allergy, but I guess we'll die finding out. To be determined.
We'll die
finding out. We'll die finding out because I'm not raising a kid in my home without peanut butter. He'll just figure it out. It's like those cat lovers that really love cats. And they're like, I don't care if my kid's allergic to this cat. I'm going to keep the cat because the cat's more important. That's how I feel about my peanut butter.
Kid can't breathe.
Sorry, Augie. Go die somewhere else. You're bothering me. Trying to watch The Office over here.
Drew said that the blackened pork chop smoothie is out of this world. Maybe that'll be in my next box. Hey, Druzy.
Oh, yeah, the blackened pork chop smoothies to die for. Guys, listen. Oh, and then last but not least, the mybookie.com. Promo code Wolfpack. Look, go sign up right now. The fight is this weekend. If you want to gamble with me live on the interwebs, one, you got to send us a DM on the Instagram and let us know that you want to participate. And two, you got to go to mybookie.com and use the promo code Wolfpack and sign up. It's going to get you a bunch of different bonuses. We're going to be doing entertainment bets for the fight on the 29th, which is a Saturday. I'm telling you, you don't freaking get up in there and you don't get in the DMs. I'm going to stop checking these DMs around Thursday, and I'm not going to let you into the little group chat while we're live watching the fight together, group chat, and on my own personal celly phone with all you guys. So if you want to get my digits and you want to hang out with us, yeah, better go to mybookie.com/.
Yeah, better.
All right. Enough of the bullshit. Enough of the bull. No, enough of the malarkey, as somebody like Drew Breezy would say. That's enough malarkey for one evening. Enough shenanigans. Let's dive into some true crime. I got a full glass of wine and I'm tired of talking. What do we got? Asha Degree.
We do. Yeah, it's Asha Degree. Before that, let me give you a couple of updates and a couple of little pop culture thingaroos here. All right. So this case takes place in the year 2000. Real quick, do you remember? I think we've done this before. It was on Conan O'Brien, and they had the clip where he and Andy did that with the flashlights in their faces, and they'd sing in the year 2000, in the year 2000. Somebody in the chat. Somebody's got to remember that. It was hilarious. But pop culture wise, in the year 2000, Mission Impossible 2 was released. X-Men was released. The Real Slim Shady was released. Okay.
By the way, everybody's going real Slim Shady right now. All the celebs going full Slim Shady this year. Don't know why. Even Ryan Sheckler, one of my faves, going full Slim Shady. All of them are doing it. Pete Davidson, full Slim Shady right now.
What does that mean?
With the Slim Shady, the bleached blonde hair.
Oh, the hair.
No. Hey, Deadleg, if you'll real quick, just go find all the celebrities right now with bleached hair. They're all doing it.
I'll find some.
With Jonah Hill's doing it again. Dude, so many.
Weird.
It's very weird. One of the female chicks, she just shaved her head and went full blonde too. Anyway,
maybe I'll do that. Blink 182's All the Small Things. That was the year 2000. Small things. Now their tickets are $800 a piece for the tour. Microsoft launches Windows 2000. That's currently what I'm running, in case anyone wondered. CSI Crime Scene Investigation was on the TV. And Hillary became a U.S. Senator of New York.
A U.S. citizen.
So in the year 2000, things started ramping up for that sweet gem of a lady. What else have we got here? You guys, okay, so for crime updates, last week we covered the Rex Heuermann case, which is the Long Island serial killer case. It was something that began potentially in the 80s, definitely into the 90s. All the way up. He was still using a burner phone as of this past year. So I would contend to say that he's not stopping what he started. But he was arrested in connection with 3 of the 4, the Gilgo 4 girls, as they were deemed, that were found back then. Anyway, the search continues. He has property in New York. He lived in Massapequa. He worked in Manhattan. And then we learned that he also had property. He purchased quite a bit of acreage in South Carolina. His brother lives down there too. Maybe he planned to go find Alec Murdaugh and they were going to kick it together. He did plan to retire down there. They've now seized a vehicle that was associated with him, a dark green Chevy Avalanche, down at his South Carolina property. Also, they are starting to look for evidence and potential remains in South Carolina. We also know that he had a timeshare in Las Vegas. So if you are in Vegas, we know that his victimology was sex workers, and Las Vegas has plenty of them and plenty of desert. So not to speculate, I do think this is the tip of the iceberg with him, though, and I would be very surprised to find that. I feel like just bodies are everywhere. When
you know where where he wasn't trying that? In a small town.
I should have. Why didn't I know? Why didn't I know? It's true. It's very true. So we're keeping an eye on that as that goes on. He's not said a lot. Obviously, there's not much for him to say. He's lawyered up, but that's going to be interesting as it continues. Now, listen, more over here in my neck of the woods. So Eric, you know Topsail Beach, right?
Yeah.
So in North Carolina, in a town called Hampstead, I'm just going to read straight from the article.
Oh, my favorite place to skateboard is in Hampstead.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I love
Skate
that
barn.
skate park. Yeah, that's a great one.
Just skated with them the other day.
At the barn. Yeah. Shout out to the skate barn. 3 bodies. This was a couple of days ago. 3 bodies of young men were found in a car. It was Sunday morning at the Speedway gas station on Highway 17. So that would be about
exactly where it's at.
Yep, that's like 10 minutes from where the skate barn is. It says, the U.S. Marine Corps 2nd Marine Logistics Group said on Tuesday that the 3 were Marines, and they identified them. Lance Corporal Tanner Kaltenberg, who was 19. Lance Corporal Merrick Dockery, who was 23, and Lance Corporal Ivan Garcia, who was also 23. They've said is that they ruled out overdose, and they've said nothing else. So
choked on crayons.
3 were in a car dead, and that's
too soon.
That's a good part of town. Whatever, it's not far from Lejeune, guys. If you're not familiar, a lot of Marines are in that area because Camp Lejeune is right there. But that's crazy. So we'll be following that too. That's
wild. And they're not thinking it's like a fentanyl overdose, or like what did the drill sergeant leave them in the car?
100% ruled out overdose. Now
Staff sergeant left him in the car while he ran in to grab some beer and met an old lady. Forgot to roll the windows down for the 3 Marines.
Think about the what are they calling it? The Rainy Street. What is it? The one in Texas that was like killing all those young men, but they found them drowned. They were drowned. But I don't know. We had a rash of this a few years ago, like in Wilmington. I think a bunch of Marines were winding up murdered. So I don't know. We'll keep an eye on it. It's a weird
super
one.
Scary.
Yeah. All right, guys. So let's dive into it, and then we'll talk shop at the end. We're going to be talking about missing unsolved case. You know, I don't like those. I like to cover those. From 2000. Excuse me. Actually, also out of North Carolina. It's from Shelby City or Cleveland County, North Carolina. And the little girl's name is Asha Degree, Asha Degree. She was born on August 5th, 1990, and she has been missing since Valentine's Day of 2000. She was 9 years old when she went missing. There's Asha on the screen, cute little girl, hair and pigtails, and we'll talk more about her specifically here in a moment. Like I said, she was born in 1990, and she lived at home with her mom and dad. Her mom was Akila, and her dad is here. Akila, and her dad is Harold, and her older brother O'Brien. So her brother was about a year her senior. She was a 4th grader in the year 2000 and was 9 years old. She lived at 3404 Oakcrest Street in a duplex. So this street was a pretty sleepy street. I mean, there were houses around it. And a duplex, if you're not familiar, is kind of like hers in particular. I think we have a picture of it. It looks kind of like a ranch style home, but you have two different entrances because 2 families live there, right? So they're separated. They don't go to each other's side, but they are separated. There's a carport on either side. So some of the sources will refer to it as an apartment. And so I think that gets a little confusing because that kind of changes what things might look like for the morning that she went missing. But it is, in fact, that duplex right there.
What town is that in?
That was in Shelby City, North Carolina. So Shelby City is about 50 miles west of Charlotte. So Charlotte, is a big hub. And they're about an hour west of Charlotte there. So kind of mid to west North Carolina, if you're picturing the state on a map. In the year 2000, I believe Shelby City had a population of 20,797 people. So not a very populated town. So her grandmother, aunt, uncle also lived on that street. So she had quite a bit of family in the town and particularly in her neighborhood on her street. Excuse me. So her mom, Akila, worked first shift at a place called the Kaiwai American Company, and her dad, Howard, worked second shift at a loading dock at a company called PPG. So Asha and her brother, O'Brien, would have a little bit of alone time after school, kind of latchkey kids for a small amount of time. So they'd get home, they rode the bus to and from, and they would get home and have a window of basically free time where their mother says that that's when they would kind of have a snack and complete their homework, often getting it done before she gets home from work. So, so I said that they ride the bus, but on Friday, February 11th, all right, the Cleveland County schools were closed for the day. So they were going to have a long weekend away from school, but there's some, they had to be taken care of too. They're only 9 and 10 at the time. So they weren't going to be home. Mom and dad didn't want them home all day long while they were at work and the kids are at school. So they went and stayed at their aunt's house, Asha Degree, during the day while mom was at work. And so then that evening, both kids had basketball. These were pretty active kids with just normal activity stuff, right? Sports and school and whatnot. So they had practice that evening at their school, Falston Elementary. They went on home. Everything was normal. That was, like I said, Friday, February 11th. And then on Saturday, the 12th, they both had basketball games. You'll read some reports that like the kids were sheltered and all of this. I don't believe so. I think that the only thing that would, and even this doesn't make them sheltered, they didn't have a computer at home because mom said that she was, of course, concerned about outside influences. Computers and the internet was still vaguely new to a lot of people in the year 2000. It wasn't everywhere. I don't think it's odd that she didn't have a computer in the year 2000.
We didn't get a computer until, well, I guess it would have been more like 98.
Yeah, I mean, late 90s. So
I wasn't allowed on it. I wasn't allowed to just have like free reign on that thing.
And there wasn't much free reign to have, right? At the very beginning, there weren't many websites. I mean, it's just, so the year 2000, I don't find it odd, or I don't find them to be sheltered at 9 and 10 for the family home not to have a computer. You could access them at school or at a public library at that time. And that's what a lot of people did because they didn't have them. So, excuse me. So on Saturday, like I said, both kids had basketball games. It's kind of that, that game situation. You go, it's loud in that gymnasium. All the little girls, like Pony League games, play first, then the boys. So the girls team played first. So Asha was up to play. They had been undefeated. There's a reason I'm telling you a little bit about her basketball, because later some people think this has something to do with her. With this case, I don't, but Asha was fouled out 3 minutes before the game was over. The buzzer rang. They lost. Again, they had been undefeated until this moment. Asha cried. She was very upset about it, but so did a lot of other little girls on the team. I don't find that to be
one of the parents get like super pissed and go.
No, I think that they
with it.
Like, no, I think that they had been undefeated and they were excited and thought, you know what I mean? It was the first time they lost. And, I just think, and they're little girls and they were 9 years old, I don't think it's odd that they cried. But it's also said that pretty soon, right after, within a few minutes, they all kind of, got it together. She was fine because then she sat and watched her brother play. She was laughing, eating snacks. So she was fine. It didn't like ruin her day or anything.
God, kids were so much tougher in the 2000s. You see that? They would lose a game and then they'd get over it and watch another game. Mm-hmm. Like now we can't even lose games because like it's a tie every time for like 9-year-olds.
Well, and that was something that I was reading about too. When I was reading about this case, someone pointed out the difference that like in the year 2000 for a 9-year-old Pony league like that, they're still describing players. They're still keeping every track of points, and fouls and this and that. Now, where my kids play, they still did that, but I know a lot don't these days. So she continues to go on about her day. She watches her brother play ball. Then they go home and change, and she goes over to a cousin's house where I think it said between 10 and a dozen little girls are over there for a sleepover. So it's like a bunch of cousins and friends and things like that. So I think they said that they stayed up pretty late, as you can imagine, listening to music and watching movies and dancing. Just being.
It wouldn't stay up late if they all had ghost beds. If you laid those girls down on a ghost bed with ghostbed.com/Wolfpack, saving you up to 50% off, or you can go over there and bundle, get 35% off on all the extra things like the pillows and the cooling sheets. Those kids would be knocked out right away. If you're using melatonin for a child that's not even in middle school yet, why don't you try a ghost bed first? Lay him down on a ghost bed, see if that knocks him out before we start going the route of the medications. Just give it a shot. If you're having mental illness issues, just give it a shot. If we spend all that money on like counseling and all those things, just try getting a good night's sleep first. Mental health starts with a good night's sleep and a good diet. That's why we're proud to partner with people like GhostBed and Factor. Head over to ghostbed.com/Wolfpack and get you some sleep that's so good, it's freaking daggone scary. It's scary. Woo. But seriously, though, those pillows and the cooling sheets, like I thought that the mattress was a game changer. And then I got the pillow and the cooling sheets, and I was like, never mind. Now it's a game changer.
All of it.
Yeah. Anyway, ghostbed.com/Wolfpack. Back to you, Andrea.
Thank you. Yes. So now it's Sunday morning. So again, she had slept over with her friends and cousins, had a fun little sleepover night with all of them. So it's Sunday morning, and I'm sure she's exhausted, but her mom and dad and brother come pick her up from her friend's house to go to church. They had service at around 11 that morning, and they attended the Macedonia Missionary Baptist Church. Their service, like I said, was around 11 o'clock, and then soon after church was over, just around noon, the family members they went to a family member's house after church for food and, just a gathering that they did pretty regularly. Excuse me. So they had a pretty routine schedule where mom and dad worked Monday through Friday. Kids are at school Monday through Friday. Friday night would be your basketball practice. Saturday was the games. Sunday was the church. And like I said, often to a family member's house for lunch afterward. So sounds like a pretty typical family, I would assume. Eventually, they all head home. At this point, Asha is very tired because she'd been up late the night before and then going all day that Sunday. So around 6:30 that Sunday evening on the 13th, she went to her room to take a little nap. Well, a big storm rolled in, and around 8:30, she was awoken by the sound of the storm, right? So she comes into the living room to hang out with her mom and dad and brother and watch some TV. So at 9 p.m., a car hit a telephone pole not far from their home, and that knocked out electricity on a lot of the grid of their county, including their home. So they were without power at that time around 9 p.m. So around midnight, Harold walks over to Alicia and tells her, or Asha, and tells her to wake up. She was on the couch dozing, and so it's about midnight. He tells her to go onto her bed. He watches her get in the bed, tucks her in, whatever. He goes back and continues to watch TV, and he finally goes to bed at 2:30. Now, keep this in mind. Harold worked second shift. So 2:30 to go to bed for him isn't really a big deal. Some people have talked about that. There is some, differing information. So that's why I don't really want to touch on it too much about whether or not he worked that day. Normally, he didn't work Sundays. Some people think that he had been at work and come home. And then there's also talk about that he left the home to go get candy around, or I'm sorry, not candy, but to leave the home around 10 or 11 that night and came back. Again, that's not corroborated really anywhere or by Harold. He's never said that he did that, but a lot of the sources say that he came home and then left to go to the store and come back. If he did go to the store, I'm still not certain that he did. If he did, I don't think that that's unheard of. Again, like I said, he worked second shift. Him leaving the house at 10:30 at night is not the biggest deal in the world. And the next day was Valentine's Day. So not only let's hypothesize on why he might need to make a last minute late night run to the store. Maybe the kids had Valentine's parties, right? Or also his anniversary with his wife was the next day. So, he could
he's probably sitting there was back then it was commercials,
yeah.
And he was like, oh, shit.
Yeah. So again, he never said he left the house, and the mom never said he left the house either. So I kind of don't even think that he did, but in the few sources that mention him leaving, I don't find that to be odd, even if that is what happened at all. So he tells her to go on and get in her bed at midnight, like I said. So at 2:30, he goes to bed. He opens the door and checks. Now, O'Brien and Asha shared a room. So this duplex was a 2-bedroom. Okay. So mom and dad are in one room and the sibling children are in the other room. So he peeks in, and O'Brien and Asha are both sound asleep. So after that, now her brother O'Brien, of course, he was 10 at the time. When he was asked, of course, he was questioned quite a bit. He said that he saw her get up to go to the bathroom around that time, not long after Dad checked on them. He said he remembered seeing her because he kind of woke up in the light and, with squinty eyes, saw her coming back from the restroom and getting back in bed, and that she was wearing her white nightgown with the red stripe down the side, the same nightgown that she wore almost every night to bed. He also said that it seemed like later that night, again, he can't give times. He's 10. It's the middle of the night. That later after that, he heard her bed like squeak, and he didn't think anything about it at all because it just, sounded like she was rolling over or just adjusting in bed. So, he kind of barely woke him and he went back to sleep. So at 5:45 that morning, Akila wakes up and gets the day started. So she goes to wake the children around 6:30, which is earlier than they usually wake up, but usually they bathe at night. So remember, the night before was the power outage and all that stuff. So she's trying to get them to get bathed and ready for school a little bit earlier than their normal time. So she starts bath water and opens the door to the kids' room. So she says the children's names, and O'Brien sits up sleepily, starts to crawl out of the bed, and Asha did not. So she looks at her bed and she's not there, and she removes the covers and she's not there. And she asks O'Brien, where is she? Has she already woken up for the day? And he's looking around. He said, no, I don't, he didn't know where she was. And she even checks like the other side of his bed, because sometimes Asha would get scared at night and go sleep on the other side of his bed, like on the floor. And she wasn't over there. So she's not super alarmed at first, I think just confused. So she starts to go through the house. This was not a very big house, guys. So she starts to go through and checks the living room and the kitchen, the bedroom again, the closets. And then she opens the door and looks outside and checks the cars. Like, for some reason, has she gotten in the car? She's just confused. She goes back to her bedroom and quickly starts to get dressed while she's telling Harold, I can't find Asha. Like, she's nowhere to be found. She's not in the house. So he said that maybe he suggested that potentially Asha was at the grandmother's house. So the grandmother lived across the street. So he said maybe she's gone to grandma's. So she calls grandma. She hasn't seen her. She calls another aunt down the street. She hasn't seen her. Again, it's 6:30 in the morning, right? So they're getting these phone calls and they're like, I don't know where she is. So she's now starting to panic, and she tosses the phone to Harold and tells him to call 911. And she starts to go down the street screaming Asha's name up and down the sidewalk. So things from here progress pretty rapidly. Harold calls the police.
My worst nightmare.
Oh, it's sickening.
Like, how often do you go into your children's room per night to like check on them, like before you go to bed?
How often do I?
Yeah.
I don't now.
Well,
they're 10 and 13, so it's kind of like.
I'm saying when they were like this age, like.
Oh
9,
yeah. No, I did a lot.
Dude, if I get up to go pee in the middle of the night, like I walk down the hallway, I pop in. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like,
yeah.
I guess it's maybe too much true crime, but like I check all the windows in the house.
Well, and that's what Harold did, right? He did when he told her to go to bed. He tucked her in, and then at 2:30 he checks on her. I mean, yes, of course.
Yeah.
Oh, it's sickening. So he calls the police at 6:39 a.m. It just so happens that an officer was kind of already out around that area. And so the first officer gets there at 6:42. I mean, within 3 to 4 minutes of him calling, because he was just kind of already in that area. The sheriff arrives to the house next. Then more officers arrive. They begin asking for photos of Asha, and they quickly call a canine unit out. So I will tell you, this was not a huge police department, but they also were mighty, right? They are strong yet mighty, because they're getting on everything very quickly. Let's see here. So before you know it, Akila, the mother, later states that by 7 a.m., every cop in the county was there, and that local news channels were there, newspapers, etc. And by 8:30, about 10 different organizations now had joined in the search. So different police departments, fire, a lot of people are out in the area looking for this child. So by 12 o'clock, a highway patrol helicopter had been deployed and is searching the area. Now there's a trucker named Jeff Roop, and he's having a lunch break. He hears on the news this story, and he calls authorities immediately. He was a local trucker that drove the Sundrop bottling company truck. So he calls authorities when he hears this because he had not know anything about it. He's sitting there um, eating his lunch. So I'm just going to read straight from the article. It says that he saw a young girl walking with a book bag south on NC 18. So Highway 18 is the main highway in question. It's a 2-lane highway that spans, I think, 147 miles or something in the direction of north to south there in Shelby City. And it's, it's like just a rural highway. Like think of truckers kind of barreling down the road. You'd probably take that to get to a lot of the different places in town. So this is actually the road she would take to go to school via bus. And in quotes, he says, I seen a little girl walking down the road with her book bag. She had on a little dress and white tennis shoes, and her hair was in pigtails. So he found this odd, and he turned his 10-wheeler truck around and drives back toward her. Remember, he's like a local driver for the Sundrop company. So it's not like he's not like a, nationally driving big haul trucker. So he says he went back. He said, I went back, but she never did look up at me. She looked like she knew where she was going. She was walking at a pretty good pace. So he turns the truck around again and passes her for a third time as he resumes his normal route. As he passes by a third time, he notices that she veers off the highway into the fog and darkness, and he doesn't see her again. Keep in mind, it had been storming that night before, big lightning storm as they were going to bed. By the time this is happening at like 4 a.m., it's still raining outside. So it's a child walking in the rain on the side of a highway. All right. So at 2 p.m. this afternoon, so he's called authorities now to tell them what I just told you, what he had seen. At 2 p.m., now this is Monday, Valentine's Day, the 14th, the NCSBI, so the North Carolina State Bureau of Investigation, they get there and they start to develop the house. So now they're not really looking at it like a crime scene, but they are securing the home. They tape it off and begin to interview family members. At 9 p.m., the sheriff announced that there had been 2 reported sightings. So now we have another sighting. I'm going to read this one from the article as well. Roy Blanton Sr. and his son Roy Jr. were on a trucking run for Porter's Transport, Inc., heading north up North Carolina 18. So that's the highway we've been talking about, when they spotted someone walking south along the road. Concerned that the person might get hit by a truck, he used their CB radio to warn nearby truckers to be on the alert for the person by the road. He later said, it was a small figure wearing light-colored clothing. I thought it was a woman. I couldn't tell if it was a child. I thought that maybe it was a domestic violence thing where a woman left the house and was out walking. So he did. So a lot of the questions are, why didn't they call immediately when they saw a child? The first guy said he thought it was a kid, and then she looked like she knew where she was going, and she vanished into the fog. I think he was just kind of confused. This guy said, he thought it was a woman walking down. So you've got to think he was.
It could have been. And it could have been.
Could have been. He was traveling north on NC 18, this trucker. If she was he was traveling south on NC 18. She was traveling north. So that means in this rain, she's not only not beside him, she's on the other side of the road, going in the opposite direction. So he only gets a glimpse of her. Now, I will say that the authorities took these 2 tips very seriously, because unlike a lot of other times, when people call in all these conflicting stories or they've already heard stuff on the news, these 2, no one described on the news what she had been wearing. She was wearing something different than what she had gone to bed in. Then these 2 stories corroborated each other, and they were independent of each other. They both, and what they said added up. It was the same place around the same exact time. So authorities did take this pretty seriously.
Right, but what did she go to bed in? What was she wearing when she went to bed?
Well, she had worn a gown to bed.
But did they find the gown?
No, they've not found the gown.
So then it's safe to say that she left in a gown too, and not some kind of like outfit, right? Potentially.
But okay, even if that's the case, she threw on her shoes and left.
So like what I'm saying is that these guys probably did see somebody, but it could have been just a domestic violence. You know what I mean? It could have been somebody walking to work.
Yeah. Well, they said with the backpack, and that's going to be important in a moment. And the first guy did think it was a little girl.
Okay.
He didn't understand, but he thought it was. The second guy did.
Now, does she have a missing backpack, I guess, from the house? Because that would probably solve that part.
Well, I think we're going to solve that part.
All right, let's do it.
So, let's see here. So he was actually out of town. The one that I just read that about, he was out of town. He actually was in Chicago by this point, I think, by the time he heard about this. So, or he hadn't even, excuse me, he did not hear about it. He didn't call it in. He thought it was a woman. He was on the phone with his wife that night, and she starts to tell him about this case of this missing girl. And he was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. And then he remembered what he had seen that morning. And that's what spurred him to call authorities. So later that night, the police continued to interview Akila, Howard, and O'Brien, other family members in that area. And then on the morning of February 15th, now it's Tuesday, the cops were pretty quick thinking, I think, and set up a checkpoint on North Carolina Highway 18 where she had been kind of spotted or reportedly sighted around the same time that she would have been gone. So somewhere between like 3 to 6 a.m., they set up a checkpoint right there in case there's, they can find somebody traveling that area that either saw something or knows what happened. So the search, they said they got no clues from it. They did question everyone that they stopped, but they got no clues from that checkpoint. So the search expands now. As the area widens, there was a woman named Raleigh Turner and her daughter Debbie, and she had like an upholstery company, and she had quite a bit of property and a few outbuildings on her property that she kept like an old tractor in, chicken house, whatnot. It's a bit of a rural area. So they were asked if their land and outbuildings could be looked at. There were people at this point with dogs, people on horseback. It's a proper search. So they quickly agreed and they helped out. Well, as they're all looking, they keep calling this a yellow hair bow. It's like a plastic clip, a yellow hair bow, white Atlanta Olympics pencil, a green marker, candy wrappers, and a wallet-sized photo of a little girl. So they give the photo to police, right? Because they're like, the mom and the daughter are kind of searching their own outbuildings at this point. And they keep in mind, there had been that giant storm the night before. And so often they said when the storm happened like that, sometimes like trash could wash down, like debris could wash down to that part of the property. I've seen that in my own yard. That's not unheard of. So when they saw like the marker and pencil, they didn't think much about any of that. But when they saw this photo, they didn't understand. So they hand that over to searchers, who gives it to authorities. The photo, by the way, is not Asha. Okay. So the next morning on Wednesday, February 16th, authorities show the photo to Asha's family. They already know it's not Asha, but they want to know who this child is and did Asha know her. The family has no idea who this girl is. So at this time, it looks like the Turners haven't given over the pencil, the marker, and the bow. They thought it was unrelated, and they thought that since the family didn't know who was in that photo, that this was insignificant anyway, and that none of it had to do with Asha at all. But later that afternoon, police brought that Sundrop truck driver back to the area that he said he saw the girl at, so he could physically point to them where he saw her. So he points to a spot that's actually near a field that opens up by the Turner's house, where they found the picture and that other stuff. So that just kind of continues to corroborate some things. And his name, again, was Jeff Roop. They did give him a polygraph, and he cleared it. He's never been considered a suspect at all. On Thursday, February 17th, a member of the search party found a candy wrapper near the Turners' outbuilding. So when the Turners were asked about it, they quickly remembered the other things they had found and hand over the pencil, the marker, and the candy wrappers and the little bow, right? These were all turned into police, and Asha's parents confirmed immediately that these were, in fact, her items. She had an Atlanta Olympic pencil just like that. That was her hair bow. And the candy wrappers were exactly the same kind of candy that had just been given to her that Saturday prior at the basketball game. So these were her things that were found. The picture still, we can't explain that. We don't know who that is. All right. So now we start to search to focus on that area, more concentrated on that Turner's property. So nothing happens now until August of 2001. All right, guys. So this was February 2000 initially. So now we're like a year and a half later. It's August 2001. And I'm going to tell you about the next big development. So this man named Terry Fleming. All right. This is about 30 miles away So 30 miles away from where Asha lived, there's this guy, Terry Fleming. He runs like excavation stuff. He's on a backhoe, all the things. And he's digging up some land for his job. So he was cutting a new road through the woods beside the highway, and he uncovered a bag that looked strange to him. He said that he dodged the bag for several hours, kind of going on with his work, clearing trees and underbrush from the roadside forest. So just kind of a big job he's got going on. And he said, I noticed it for a while and I didn't bother it. I go in and clean up mess areas all the time, and you see trash, you don't think much about it. But for some reason, this looks strange to me. So it's a black bag, like a black trash bag. At first, he said, I thought something could be in it that I didn't want to open up in the heat, but something just kept drawing him back to it. And he even used his 47,000-pound tractor hoe to maneuver the bag, thinking it would just come open, but it didn't. So he finally threw it over and he opened it. It was a double lined, so it was like two black trash bags. And inside it, a black and beige book bag was inside. He said that he didn't at the time describe everything he found. I guess they were kind of keeping it close with authorities. But when he looked at the contents, he said it was strange enough that I didn't feel comfortable with it. He said he tried to call someone about it at that time, but he was under some power lines and his phone wouldn't go out. He couldn't make a phone call. So he saw writing inside the book bag and copied it down on a piece of paper and took the paper home with him. He didn't remove any of what he saw in the book bag. He put his note aside that evening and he made some business calls. So he kind of comes home, does some work, and goes to bed. Excuse me. The next morning, he tells his wife about it, and he tells her he's going to call this number that he found on this. There was a name and a phone number on that backpack, and he was going to call the number. So when she heard the name on the backpack, she gasped. Remember, this was a year and a half after Asha went missing. Well, he'd never heard of the case, which I don't think is surprising. I mean, there's plenty of people who, you say, do you remember that girl that, no.
I mean, even with this Carly Russell, I was talking to my dad. I was like, Dad, I made a funny Carly Russell podcast last night. It was hilarious. And we're gonna he was like, who's Carly Russell?
Right. Yeah. So I don't find it strange that he didn't know who she was. So the wife gasped, though. She immediately told him about the news story she had heard about the little girl the year prior. So at 10 a.m., Terry Fleming called the Burke County law enforcement. Police and FBI agents immediately secured that area and began to comb that land. And any evidence that they found was sent into the FBI forensic lab in Quantico, Virginia. And then a few days later, on August 13th, 2001, the police did confirm, in fact, that the backpack was Asha's. But the bags that contained the backpack weren't hers. They state that the new evidence suggests that Asha was abducted while leaving home, and confirmed that the clothing in the backpack was also hers, just not what she was wearing when she was spotted walking down the road. So what they found in that backpack were a pair of jeans that had like a red stripe down them, another like a purple and black t-shirt. Mom confirmed that all of these things were in fact her clothes. All right.
So like somebody kidnaps her and tells her to pack her own shit.
But we have two, and then we'll find out later there were actually 3 eyewitness accounts of seeing a little girl in white walking down the side of the road with a backpack. What? So it makes every bit of sense that she was actually walking alone. So we're going to hypothesize on this at the end.
All right.
But let me tell you what else was in that backpack.
Okay.
Her own clothing, these kinds of things. And then a New Kids on the Block. They keep calling it a t-shirt. I saw a picture of it. It's a gown. I had almost the exact same one. Little nightgown and a book, a Dr. Seuss book. I'll pull it up. Mr. McElligot's Pool or whatever. A Dr. Seuss book in that nightgown. Neither one of those belonged to Asha per her parents. They had never seen those two items in their lives. So that's very odd. All right. I mean, I guess you could argue that she got them from her cousin's house when she spent the night at the sleepover or something, maybe. I don't know. But either way, those were not her items. So nothing else happens. That was in 2001. All right. So 14 years later, on Monday, February 9th of 2015, the FBI offered a reward of $25,000 for any leads. And the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children created a new age progression photo of Asha. And that's the photo that I believe we had a picture up earlier of Mom and Dad holding. Yep. And there's another one as well. Holding an age progression photo. On Wednesday, May 15th, 2016, authorities get a tip that someone matching Asha's description was seen getting in a vehicle on North Carolina Highway 18 where she was last seen.
Oh.
So it's interesting though, right? Because now 16 years have gone by and now they're getting this tip that someone remembers very clearly. It's kind of in the wake of the news story coming back out. It was described as an early 1970s Lincoln Mark IV or potentially a Ford Thunderbird of the same year, dark green, either one of which in the year 2000 would be cars that kind of stand out to your eye, right? They're in the year 2000, these were still some kind of vintage cars. So it was actually considered a vehicle of interest. So the FBI took that lead so seriously that they tried to develop it. They put it out in the public. Like I said, they called it a vehicle of interest. They were very interested in this. So I don't know the details of what the tip said. No one does. But whatever they told the FBI, they seemed to feel like it was weighted heavily enough to
Hold on. Were these was this the car right here?
well, those are just ideas of those kinds of cars, like somebody said.
Let me just blow your mind really quick. When I was a cop sitting in my cop car, there was a woman who went missing. And I believe you and I might have covered this case. She went missing from the mall. Like,
yeah. Is she
in
the
the
one that
70s.
solved her own killer because he like killed her inside her car in the parking lot?
No,
Her DNA was found on him like later. Okay, sorry.
Maybe
That was a mall one.
But anyway, it was a green car identical to this, and it was an unsolved case out of North Carolina. And the last place the car was seen was in Raleigh, North Carolina. And this is the picture. I mean, at least it's the most identical car to what they thought that car looked like. And I actually saw one on my beat and took pictures of it. I never did anything with it, but I thought in my brain, it's so crazy. There's another unsolved North Carolina case with this exact car, and it was last seen near the Snoopies in Raleigh in like 1970 something. I'm gonna find the case while you talk. This is bizarre. I'm seriously. I'll look it up. I'll find it. Hold on.
Okay. Yeah, that's super weird. Also, pay attention to though, because it's weird. But so again, they did seem very interested in this tip. So on Tuesday, October 8th of 2015, the Cleveland County Sheriff's Office put up a Facebook post, and I'm going to read to you what they said. They described the case and asked for everybody in the community for help with new possible clues on the case. And they say, end quote, our investigation, our investigative team has discovered 2 items of interest that could possibly provide new leads about Asha's disappearance. The first one is a library book. If you or someone you know had this Dr. Seuss library book, McGillicuddy's Pool is shown on the screen. They had a picture of it. Around the time of Asha's disappearance and lost track of it, please call us. Library records do not go back to the year 2001. The second item of interest is a t-shirt like this one, and they show the New Kids on the Block gown, and it says they describe who the New Kids on the Block are. If you had a t-shirt or gown like this or know someone who did at any point in time, please call us. Now, they released that information, like I said, in 2015. They found it, though, in 2001. The interesting thing about that book is it gets a little confusing. What they've said about that Dr. Seuss book is that it was actually a library book from her elementary school.
Okay.
But they confirmed that she did not check it out. So they say that their records don't go so far back as to 2000. I would assume that in 2001, they did have the records from the prior school year. And for whatever reason, maybe with a good memory or whatever, they know that she didn't check it out. But they also say they can't verify who did. But it did come from her school, and her parents had never seen the book, but they say that she didn't check it out. I don't know. The book thing is a weird one. I even looked up what the book was about in case that was some weird clue, but it just has to do with like someone being frustrated that they couldn't like stifle like childhood, like basically joy. Like someone like a kid is like wanting to fish and just enjoy his day, and there's like the bad guy is trying to like not let him have this like innocent joy. So I don't know. It's weird. The book thing is a weird one for me. In 2000, we're going to take it back a couple of years on a separate note. In 2014, this guy named Donald Ferguson was arrested. He was charged with the murder of a Greensboro girl named Shalonda Poole in 1990. That little girl was 7 at the time. He raped her and strangled her and left her body behind a building. They started looking into Donald Ferguson in this case. There were some other similarities there. We've got a few weird leads. Like there were a couple of, I feel like, just false calls. One guy called and said that he knew what happened to her and he could tell you where she was. And then you come to find out that like he was trying to get himself into a different jail, where you find out that his other inmate friends were like starting a coup or going to try to like escape from the jail. So that just fell flat. There was another call from a different inmate who at this point was serving a lot of time for something else. So he didn't mind to talk in hopes that it would lessen the sentence he currently had. And he said that he knew what happened because he was actually involved in a drug deal that night, and that he wasn't driving, but it was raining and the driver bumped something, hit something, and they realized it was a person, and that the driver put the person in the back of the truck, and it was a little girl, and that the driver dropped him off at home and left. He later came back and didn't have the little girl with him and said that she was done or dead, and he got rid of her and told him where he put her. So he was trying to use that to barter for a lesser sentence for the crime he was currently in prison for. But they followed up where he said that she would be located. Nothing came of that. They dredged the lakes all around. They've used ground penetrating radar. They've only so far as found animal bones. Now, where her backpack was found, that did become, as you can imagine, quite an area of investigation. Authorities did later say that, if anything, they're much more concentrated on that area to this day, saying that maybe someone who lives around that part of town could be implicated in this. Again, that was 30 miles from her home. They are looking less and less at her home area. So when they did find the backpack, the only other things that we know of they found, now we don't know what else they sent off for evidence. They've been kind of quiet on some things, but they did find animal bones and along with them some khaki pants. Now, they've not let us know anything other than to say that they don't think the pants are involved or related with this case, but they were right near where the backpack was found. So that's kind of an interesting little point. So the FBI did actually formulate a behavioral profile of a suspect in the case, but they've never released that to the public. So we don't know what they are going to say would be the type of person who might be doing this. Earlier on, the police did put that picture of the girl in the paper. Now, this is something that just kind of gets washed over. And it's another thing when I read about this case or hear people talking about it, that seems to be the biggest frustration, because that's vital. Whatever it even is, the picture looks a little bit old. Like, it looks like it could have been an older photo at the time, but the girl in the picture looks a little bit younger than Asha, maybe around 7-ish. And again, they took it to her school. None of the school administrators or staff could pinpoint who that child was. No one knows who in the neighborhood. No one knows who this child is. They did put it in the paper, but they put it in the paper for like a Thursday morning paper. It's kind of a rando day. And it was at like toward the bottom of page 75. So like,
good luck.
Nothing came of it, but I'm not sure why anything would have come of that, So I do think that picture needs to be way more widely circulated even now, because it just kind of never was. Now, I will say that I don't know. There's a couple of things, like a couple of interviews that mom and dad did that potentially they could have shown that photo for some reason, but I kind of doubt it, because I would imagine they're showing photos of their daughter and not of this child they don't know. So mom and dad went on like Montel a month after this happened. Oprah ran a small segment on the case. It was in a few different news outlets, but that picture is haunting to me, because was that an accident? Did someone have that and they dropped it? It was with her belongings in that outbuilding at the Turner's house, with her pencil and her bow. The thought is that maybe she went to the Turner's outbuilding, that shed area where her pencil and bow and candy wrappers were found. A candy wrapper was also found on the road not far from there, the side of the road. So it's literally like a little Hansel and Gretel. We've got sightings, we have candy wrappers, then we have some more of her items. So you can actually build a physical kind of trail of where she was heading, and they all add up to each other. Some speculate that she was going to the outbuilding to get out of the elements because it was raining still that morning. One of the points you'll hear people talk about is that they were reading a book in school about like the whipping boy, about this boy that basically it's like a normal class or lower class, whatever boy, and like this rich prince, and that whenever the prince gets, does the wrong thing, the boy has to take his whippings. Like that's kind of how this story goes. And that in the story, at some point, the prince and the boy have bonded, they've become friends, and they decide to run away together as friends and to get away from this place that they're living that's so yucky. So some have kind of, I think, a bit widely speculated that at that sleepover, maybe she and some of the girls joked and talked about the idea of running away. Now, I will tell you, the family has been heavily investigated. I understand that people can hide things. There's no reason to think that something bad was happening at home, because that's another train of thought, that she was trying to, leave home because something was happening there. No family members, no friends, the neighbors, everyone spoke highly of the whole family. There's nothing to indicate that anything there would have been something she would have been running away from. And then a very important note, I think, she was 9 years old. All right. It's the middle of the night. Most 9-year-olds already wouldn't want to take off on foot in the middle of the night, much less in a storm. This child was known to be extremely afraid of dogs, extremely afraid of the dark, extremely afraid of thunder. So like her brother, her mom and dad, everyone corroborated this. Most kids kind of get jumpy at these things. She was terrified. So the idea that she would just take off on her own, but everything points to the fact that she did, and that she maybe then got abducted after. So, so Elwald just said meeting someone online, but she didn't meet anyone online. This was the year 2000. Like, they didn't have a computer. Right. And even if she had a computer I think that we forget, guys, how quickly technology has advanced. Even if they had a computer at school or at the church or the library, the online chat forums in the year 2000, this child wouldn't have been on that. So she didn't, now, unless she found there was someone in the community that groomed her and that at some point talked her into leaving for some reason. I don't know. None of this, it just doesn't make any sense. And to this day, what I've told you is as far as we've gotten in anything. And at one point there was a $45,000 reward. I'm not sure if that's back down or not. The family put up a billboard on the road, the last area that she was seen walking. And every year around that time, they do a walk with community members from their home to that billboard just to raise awareness and things like that. But I don't know. This one stumps me, and it's heartbreaking. It doesn't make any sense at all. So,
so it was, I went back and I was looking at it was the Martinko case.
Yeah. Michelle Martinko.
Right. And the last time they saw the car was in Raleigh, North Carolina. And that was the car.
Oh, his car. Yeah. That's the one that we call that she solved her own murder after death because she fought hard, and they didn't have the DNA technology at the time. And later they were able to develop what they had found like under her fingernails, and it was his DNA.
Right. Yeah. That was the green car there, though.
That's crazy.
Anyway, green cars like that. Those old green cars, they stick out. I guess everybody had a green car back then.
Yeah, but this was the year 2000, which is why that green car stuck out.
Oh, it's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's true. It's true. That's just bizarre. Know. Like, maybe was she sleepwalking?
So that's a theory that I've heard someone say.
So listen, my kid sleepwalks. Well, he doesn't do it very often, but when he's like really, really overly tired, he'll sleepwalk. So I block all the doors in the house with weights. I put Ashley's dumbbells in front of all the doors, just in case he tries to sleepwalk out the door.
Yeah.
But, you know, my parents thought I went missing when I was a child because I had slept walk outside of the camper, and then they were freaking out. They woke up. I don't remember this, obviously, but I was like 3 or 4. They couldn't find me. They were running. My mom was screaming, and they went to go get my dad, or I think it was, I don't know. I think my mom stayed to keep looking. My dad went to go get a Ranger. And then I had woke up. My mom said I just like crawled out from underneath the camper and was like, what are you guys yelling about?
Yeah.
And those stories always haunted me. So that's why I put like weights in front of the doors just so the kids can't.
So people do
sleepwalk
crazy
out.
things when they sleepwalk, right? There's even a case of a potential murder that happened when someone was sleepwalking and they used it as their defense, and I think got off on that. So this, keep in mind too, I think a point I didn't note is that the front door and the back door were locked, and inside her backpack was also found a house key, because remember, she had one because she would come home from school and have a little bit of downtime before parents got home. Her backpack had her key in it, and both doors were locked. They've actually, as far as I can tell, or they've not released to the public, if they know whether she left via the front door or the back door, everything was as is. Nothing was out of place. No windows propped open, nothing. Like, it's like, so if she took off on her own, she opened the door, locked it back, and kept walking, which you can do if you're sleepwalking. A lot of people argue that she wouldn't be sleepwalking in the rain, locking the door, unlocking it.
My house was built in the early 90s, but when you close, if my doors are locked, like let's say the front door is locked, I can open it from the inside, and if I step outside and close it, it's still locked from the outside.
That's just certain. It
does not unlock.
And they didn't specify whether or not it was a deadbolt, though, by the way. So that's kind of what I pictured they meant. But
like all the doors in my house, that's why we lock ourselves out constantly at our house.
I have one door that does that, and it drives me nuts.
But yeah, so it could be that she let herself out, shut the door, and then couldn't get back in. I mean, because I saw her walking alone. You know
right.
I mean?
3 people. So another one, the one that came up later, said that he saw her walking and turned back around and actually tried to approach her. Like he knew how odd it was to see a child at that time of night in the rain. And when he did, that she fled into the woods, which wasn't particularly woods, but it was the tree line on the side of the road. So these are 3, like I said, independent witnesses that all are saying the exact same thing. And it would line up with the time that after dad went to bed and the brother saw her get up to go potty. Like, so I don't know. The Q Center, I talk about the Q Center often. They've covered her case. They are still working it. The Community United effort here in North Carolina. Also, of course, the local FBI is doing that. The Cleveland County Police Department there in Shelby City, North Carolina is still working it. You can call the Center for Missing and Exploited Children if you have any tips. We'll put this up on Facebook, but this one is, I really want to share. I don't want any confusion, but I want to share the photo that they found. Again, I think that's a really important thing. And then I want to also share her case again.
But they don't know who that girl is.
We still don't know who that girl is. But I don't know. But again, it wasn't widely circulated. So even if a family member could have seen it and identified this child, maybe they just didn't see it because it ran toward the back of the paper on a Thursday. Like, it's not like it was blasted on social media and all that,
Gosh.
So,
it's so strange.
It is so strange. But anyway, we can talk.
Well, remember at the beginning of the episode, I talked about that because this was in the 2000s. They were talking about Slim Shady. Here's Zac Efron right now. Pete Davidson. Jonah Hill.
Ew, what's he doing?
They're all doing it. I'm telling you.
Why does he not have a shirt on though?
Ryan Sheckler did it. It's
terrible.
I don't know. Everybody's going straight Slim Shady from the year 2000.
But he's not doing it. He went brunette now. He's got like a beard and he's brown.
Oh, but he's old. He's old. I mean, he's pushing your age at this point. But man,
how old's Jonah Hill? Huh?
Oh, Jonah Hill?
He looks old there.
Probably the same age as Ross Patterson.
It's terrible.
They were in movies together.
It's hideous.
Oh, damn. We're the same age. Me and Joni are the same age. God, look at Pete. How old's Pete Davidson? God, he looked like he died yesterday.
He's always had those dark eyes.
That is an ugly dude. But
Pete's
man, he must
29.
be young. 29? Oh
29.
man. Oof.
1993.
At least he's funny. They say is if you're ugly, if you're funny, you're good to go. Doesn't matter as long as you're funny. Gosh, and that's an insane case, and hopefully they'll discover something more soon. I mean, it just sounds bizarre, man. That is a bizarre missing
I'm
case.
invested in this one. That's crazy. And then I will keep you guys up to date on those 3 bodies found here of the young Marines. That's wild.
Yeah, gosh, that's I'm gonna go ahead and say like fentanyl or something like nefarious like that.
They literally came out to say we're ruling out an overdose. Like this was not drugs. I mean, I don't know, but I don't know why they said it. You know what I mean? I don't know why they would have. I
mean, like they might have said it if there's bullet holes in them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And they're not putting it out. I mean, I don't know. That seems a little ish. You know, I don't know. I mean, I did some really stupid shit in the military. Obviously, we would drink a little too much and then drive. And one time we knew that we had consumed too much alcohol, and so we pulled over into a neighborhood, and then we ended up into a ditch into somebody's front yard, and everybody gotten out of the car to kind of like get away from it so nobody got in trouble. And I woke up in a ditch sleeping, but I went to sleep. But when I woke up at like 9:30 in the morning, and I was already sunburned from sleeping in the hot blazing sun.
That's North Carolina.
Could these guys gotten drunk, pulled over in their car,
Passed
went to
out.
sleep, and realized it's going to get hot
could've.
real quick?
But I would think that the cameras from that gas station would indicate that, right?
Right. I'm guessing like maybe like some kind of fentanyl thing, or unless they were all vaxxed recently. Speaking of which, did you see LeBron James's kid dropped?
I did see that today.
Bro, this shit never happened 4 or 5 years ago. It wasn't just dropping celebrities, all these.
No, I will say it's
dropping.
a lot more. It's really increased.
I mean, maybe that it's just more on the news now, but I mean, it just seems like it's becoming more and more of a thing with these younger athletes. I don't know. Strange times we're living in, but I hope they find this little girl.
I do too. Or something. I just hope something. Moving forward, and then we can talk after the show too. But so minor league studios, Bill Schofield has been doing a lot of merch work for a lot of people. Like he was doing the Drinking Bros stuff. He's done for if Beth and Greg are listening, I think did he do one more? I'm out of here. Keith was in the chats. He's done a lot of the podcasts you guys listen to. He's been doing merch for them, and he's got kind of a great little setup over there. And so he reached out a couple months ago, and I finally pulled the trigger and have some Stay Awake shirts. We're trying to get the name out there. So now that it's not night shift tonight, it's Stay Awake, right? So that works, guys, right? Stay awake. Don't let Freddy Krueger come get you. I don't know, whatever, but it's crime. So we've got those shirts out. So if you do some liking and sharing, I always say that I'm going to do a contest, and then I tell you about it, and then we don't do it. So I'm going to commit this time. I will send somebody a new shirt, and then hopefully we can get some more failure to stop stuff out there, maybe some comm center. I talked to John about that today. So that would be a lot of fun, but want to up our ante on all that stuff, and then check out some of our YouTube stuff too. And then Patreon's going off the chain. Eric just did a Patreon with Officer Daniels recently. He's got another super amazing one. I won't tease it yet. I'll let Eric do that. Coming up, right, Eric?
Yeah, it's with.
I didn't know if you were telling it yet.
Oh, I don't. Yeah, I don't really care. Yeah, we've got a bunch of Patreons coming up. I think Drew is posting a post about it or something like that. But it's, if you want to know really quick, it is with Conservative Vant, Conserve.
It's hard to read it.
Yeah, it's Anthony Ramondi. He's super funny. He's got like 290 something thousand. He's just a very funny political comedy guy. But if you want to go and follow him, it's Anthony ANTHONY RAIMONDI, and his handle is Conservativiant. Conservative savant, basically.
Yeah.
Anyway, really funny guy, blue check mark, dude. I love him. I don't need to know his name to like him. I think he says, yeah, pop that up. Yeah, there he is. All the funny videos. He's got a bunch of them. Anyway, he and I are gonna have steaks, T-bones with Tansy on the Patreon. So thank you guys for everybody subscribing. I thought the Officer Daniels episode was hilarious. But also Uncuffed Monday was probably one of the funniest shows I've been on. Jay Darrell White had a lot to say about Carly Russell, and it's all so on point.
Oh, that's a great true crime development, meaning not one at all.
Yeah, fuck that girl, dude. Like, she can get fucked 10 different ways. I don't care. I mean, she wastes. I mean, she's just, when you chalk it all down, you look at the totality, she's just a spoiled, rotten brat, is what she is. She's
I don't know anything about her. Like, I've not looked into her, you know, like her, other than the fact
spoiled,
that
rotten brat, and Jay Darrell goes all into it. I mean, their family is super rich. Mommy and daddy have never told her she's done anything wrong. Even all the pictures, the parents went and made the missing posters with like 40 cents a sheet cardstock with a picture of her in New York, like a glamour shot of her, like you know what I mean? Like, if you're missing, you want to have like a full dead on, but it's like, well, there's one of them there. That's not even the one where she's like looking off into the distance, but like every photo is just glamour shot after glamour. You gotta listen to Jay Darrell on this one. He ate her up. He ate her lunch after he saw the family's interview, and he had to there it is. Look at this picture. Oh man. Yeah. And then the parents being like, absolutely, there's an abductor out there. Like, oh, nope, no, there's not. So anyway, that was a really fun episode to hear a real comedian go off on. But yeah, guys, thank you guys for joining in on the show tonight, and we will see you guys tomorrow live at noon for Last Call. Lots of breaking news on Last Call going on in the other worlds other than first responder life. So if you want to stay informed, tomorrow's the day to do that. Until next time, for myself and Andrea Upley, guns up and giddy up.
Good night, y'all.